Spurs head coach Gregg Popovich suffers another medical incident. Let's react to it.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Spurs, right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Kens 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back. Thank you all for coming back here every single day, covering all things San Antonio Spurs. Now, you might be asking yourself, okay, Jeff, you just released a show today. What's with this new one on the same day? Well, we had no choice. There's some major news regarding head coach Gregg Popovich. By now, y'all think you already know. We'll recap what's going on right now in just a few minutes, as well as its impact overall and his future in San Antonio. But before we do that, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Kens 5 Plus app, YouTube. Check out Locked On Spurs newsletter. It's in the description below if you're watching on YouTube, or you just go to LockedOnDaily.com. You see it on your screen there. And so let's go in and get into it. You know, this is like the last thing I thought would happen on a Friday afternoon, but here we are. TMZ reported earlier today that head coach Gregg Popovich suffered a fainting, basically while he was out at a restaurant in Antonio. According to TMZ, officials say they responded, officials being the EMS in San Antonio, responded to a call for an elderly person who had fainted. Now, during San Antonio Sports Star, The Blitz, host Jason Minix read a text that he received from the SAFD, San Antonio Fire Department, saying that, yes, they did respond to an emergency call and that an elderly man had fainted. So they couldn't release Popovich's name because of laws covering that medical type stuff. So, but you can read between the lines who it was. So, yeah, this is coming off Popovich suffering a mild stroke earlier last season, which had him sidelined for the remainder of the season with Mitch Johnson coming in. So, a lot of the Spurs have been saying and keep it with the same rhetoric that, the chance Pop could come back next year. Does this yet another incident at his age put a damper on that? Should we be bracing for the inevitable of the Spurs releasing some sort of statement that he is officially retiring? Should he even come back? Should it even be in the cards? Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. Let's go and bring in our guest who's going to help me sift through all this. He is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League, joining me on this, emergency Locked On Spurs. Rudy, welcome back to Locked On Spurs. Kind of a bad way, though, to bring you back, with some bad news. Your reaction to the news that Pop suffered a medical incident, reportedly suffering a fainting spell while having dinner in San Antonio.
First and foremost, it's, prayers for Pop. We got to make sure that he's recovering, which I think the last reports are that he is recovering. But the initial reaction, it was kind of surprising and shocking, only because reports had been coming out that he was doing good on his recovery. He was making a lot of progress. You actually saw him at a practice for the Spurs towards the end of the year, talking to players. So all signs pointed to him, having a really good recovery. And then something like this happens. Now, without a whole lot of information available, a fainting spell could be anything, could be, maybe just, dehydration. I mean, it could be whatever. So I don't want to make a whole bunch of noise about it right now without knowing the exact reasoning that he went to the hospital. Maybe, like I said, I think he was released the same night. So if it was anything serious, he'd probably still be in the hospital. But initial reaction was just a shock, because I'm thinking, man, he's already on his road to recovery, and you would think, okay, he's getting back, on his leg. He's probably going to be coaching again, and this happens. So tons of questions now surrounding everything over Pop and the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Pop, the longtime head coach of San Antonio Spurs, again, at his age, 76 years old, coming off that mild stroke, at least according to the Spurs, he was on the road to recovery, as Rudy mentioned there. All signs, at least at that point, were pointing to the possibility of Popovich coming back. Even before he suffered this reported fainting spell, there was some sort of debate. Should he come back? The rigors of the NBA, schedule. During the season, as Rudy mentioned, Popovich did visit the team. And there were reports out there that the players had said that it was kind of noticeable that he was still, suffering from the effects of the stroke. So there's that. I look at this situation for the Spurs, and it's unfortunate that it happened, but can you imagine if something like this happened, if he came back on the sidelines next season and he's on that bench, or he's walking up the sidelines and he drops because of a fainting spell? I mean, you got to keep that in mind, Rudy, that if he comes back, there is that specter of another stroke happening, because they say that once you have one, they kind of become frequent. You throw in a fainting spell now. I mean, for me, this shows the signs that this could be the end of the road as far as his coaching career in San Antonio. Your thoughts?
It kind of points towards that direction, and it's not actually something that's very uncommon. I mean, it's not super common, but we've seen college coaches, Mike Krzyzewski of Duke, Coach Roy Williams of UNC. Roy Williams battled vertigo, and you would see him go down to one knee on the sideline sometimes because it looked like he wanted to collapse. We saw Mike Krzyzewski pretty much faint on the court for Duke during a basketball game. So we've seen little bits and pieces of that. But when it comes to an actual stroke, as you mentioned with Pop, they tend to say that once it happens, the frequency of it happening again is pretty, it's pretty, I guess, obvious or pretty clear that it may happen again at some point. And we, again, don't know what happened, exactly at the restaurant. But seeing him on the sidelines again, I mean, we're talking about, one of the greatest, if not the greatest coach of all time, but happening it on the sideline, that would be even scarier, man, because you're thinking, okay, he can come back. But here's the other thing is that you're adding the pressure of coaching these guys up. You're adding the pressure of in game time situations. I mean, let's not forget this is the NBA. Stress levels at an all-time high. Every time you're expected to make the playoffs, the play-ins, you're expected to do good. So having him on the sideline, Jeff, right now, it feels like I was okay with him coming back after, the stroke that he had. Looked like everything was going good. After this, I'm definitely in the situation of, hey, we need to really, really consider this and forget basketball, forget his history. It's time to look at the health part of Pop and figure, does he belong on the sidelines?
Yeah, circling back to the report too, TMZ did report that they reached out to the Spurs 3 days before they released their report today regarding Pop and the history of what happened, him fainting. So this had happened days ago. What is surprising is that none of the local media had it. Not even Shams had it. It was TMZ had it. And TMZ, say what you will about it being a rag magazine, whatever, but, they're pretty accurate, today. They're 99.9% on the ball, and this is seemingly looks like it is reported. Several sources, again, have pretty much confirmed it as well. Now, the Spurs have not released an official statement, so keep that in mind. But you can expect something like this coming in the next few days, maybe the next few weeks. The good news is that he's reportedly back home, safe, resting, and he's, doing fine. So that is the good news, that it didn't impact his overall health in a damaging way. So that's good to know. But separate and apart from this, you got to start wondering if as we all get older, we slow down, our body starts slowing down. It doesn't function as well anymore. I mean, what's next? Knock on wood, but another stroke, another fainting spell, you got to factor that in his future. Really, there's a part of me that wants to be like, look, Pop, you did everything. You're a multiple NBA championship coach. You coached in the NBA All-Star. You won. You helped Team USA to a gold medal. You're in the Basketball Hall of Fame. You broke every single coaching record in the world. You're considered the greatest ever to do it. What more does he have to prove, Rudy? I don't think there's anything more he needs to prove. I mean, why come back? Why come back? You know what? Friend of a Locked On Spurs, Spurs fan, Chris Leha, he had a great tweet or post on X. He said, I'm ready to see Popovich enjoy the basketball games at the Frost Center, sitting with Tony, Tim, and Manu. Yeah. I mean, I think that's got a way more important right now for his future, just life, because he's stressed so many times. This is bigger than basketball. Basketball is nothing. Basketball is just a orange ball that goes in the hoop. Well, maybe he should practice what he preached and realize, yeah, maybe my life is bigger than basketball right now. Your thoughts?
I totally agree on that. My first sentiment to you, my first talk to you, I clearly made a statement to you when we were talking earlier, was the fact that I think this is the time where Spurs front office comes together, ownership has that conversation with Pop and says, like, you've accomplished everything. You don't owe the game anything anymore. You're having a little bit of a medical problem right now. It might be time to retire, and it's perfectly okay. So you mentioned that Pop might give some pushback. What do you do in that situation? Well,
I think I can see him say, what are you talking about? No, I'm
yeah,
gonna go on my own,
And this is where two things need to happen. This is where the front office needs to say, you know what, I understand you really want to coach. You really want to coach. But as a front office, as a family to you, we are stressing so much to you to let you know that you should retire. Because imagine, this happening during a game. Imagining something possibly worse happening during a game. I mean, it's just too many what ifs. But the one thing that needs to happen, the first thing that needs to happen is ownership to say, look, Pop, you've done all that you can. We appreciate you. We can maybe bring you into the front office and you can kind of run stuff there. But as far as being on the sidelines, it's probably time to go. It might have to be the Tom Landry effect again, where it's something like, okay, it might be time to just go. We're going to go in another direction. Your health is way more important. But here's the key factor. What Leha did and what he said is the other part I wanted to get into. Screw the ownership part. Screw the front office. It's going to come down to the players, Timmy, Manu, Tony, David, Sean, a lot of these guys to come to Pop and say, look, don't coach anymore. We understand the fire burns, but we're retired. We're living life. You don't know the game anything. These guys don't want to see their mentor, their father-like figure get any more medical issues or anything like that. So I think these guys need to come together, have that heart-to-heart with Pop, and hopefully the right decision is made. And if it's not on Pop's side, the front office needs to step in, man. It's something that they really have to consider, as hard as it is, and as many fans think that you do never push Pop out. It's not about basketball. If you look at the health side, it's almost a guarantee that it's got to happen, man.
Yeah. I mean, you can work with him. Remember, he's not just the head coach. He's also the president of the Spurs. So he will still have stuff to do. He'll still be around. Nobody's ushering him out of the franchise.
No,
it's just, if they do push him, it's simply out of a position, not necessarily out of the franchise. It's not because they don't think he's good. He's the greatest. It's just, again, things are bigger than basketball right now, and health, life. He has kids, obviously they're grown up, but they're still their kids. He has grandkids. I'm pretty sure his family is probably in his ear saying, you know what, Dad, you're good. You know what, Grandpa? Yeah. Take it down a notch, Go ahead.
All we know, he probably already has made that decision. He has never come out and said,
I agree with you. Yeah.
I mean, we may be talking all this stuff and he's already notified them that he's not coming back. We just don't know it yet because, again, the Spurs don't report anything. Yeah,
exactly. Now, again, if you look at the video on TMZ, it is a little bit hard to make out. You do see an EMS, vehicle there with lights blaring. You do see somebody getting wheeled out on the stretcher and being put into the EMS truck there. But all signs are pointing to, and it looks like it's all but confirmed that it is Popovich. Again, the Spurs have not officially made a statement. Keep that in mind moving forward. Rudy, if there's a time to have that heart-to-heart with Pop, it's now. Yeah. You add the fainting spell to the stroke, to his age. You got the lottery right around the corner. You got draft night right around the corner. You got player workouts, evaluations, the combine. You got quality head coaches available right now, from Jenkins to Budenholzer to Malone, Mike Brown. The list goes on. Even the dark horses. You mentioned Sam Cassell. What about a Jeff Van Gundy? The point is, there's quality candidates, and you cannot tell me any of those candidates will love to coach a young, developing, Wemby-led team with a core of Wemby, Fox, and Castle, and several draft picks, first rounders, mind you, wealth of cash to spend, and San Antonio becoming a destination free agency. You can't tell me any of those guys would want that coaching job. If the time's to do it now, it's just now, Rudy, right? Is to have a conversation with them.
Yeah, and Jeff and I, we're definitely not making short of the conversation of Pop. That's for sure here, but we are talking about one of the very few, and this is like once in a blue moon where Haley's Comet appears, and you can see it in the clear night sky.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you ever see a coaching carousel right now. We talk about it on Sweep the League a lot, how you have so many coaches that are available right now that have championship experience, that have finals experience, coach of the years. I mean, you'll never see an offseason like this again in the coaching ranks. If you do, it's every once in a while, not to mention the potential NBA superstars on the move, whether it be free agency, whether it be through trades or something. So this NBA offseason is shaping up to be the most craziest one that we've seen in a very, very long time. So I think what we're talking about with coaches is, it's the conversation again. It may have already been had. We don't know, but it's a conversation that needs to be had within the Spurs walls. See what's going to happen. See what's going on. And again, can you really blame Pop if he wants to come back and they say, okay? I mean, you can't blame him. And I know half the fans are going to be upset. The other half are going to be happy about it. But for me, it just comes down to one word, and that's health. I mean, it's already the second now. At what point do you just say, okay, it's over with?
Rudy, how much do you think the fact that he's not out, at least maybe for him, that he didn't get to go out on his terms, how much do you think that's probably like just burning in him? Like, you got to be kidding me. This is how I go out? Can you imagine that? And imagine, just say you're a pro player right now and you want to go out, maybe scoring that touchdown, maybe going out like David Robinson did, an NBA champion, but Rudy Campos gets sidelined because he breaks an ankle. I mean, wouldn't that kind of piss you off and be like, no, I ain't going to come back. I ain't going to go out like this. You got to think a little bit of that. You got to think a little bit of that's probably burning in him right now.
Maybe so, but if it's a player, it's different. Players, they thrive on all that. As a coach, I mean, look at Jerry Sloan, man. I mean, the tenure he had in Utah, and I mean, he was just out after a while. And again, he didn't want to go. And I'm sure Pop wants to go out, with a championship, banner being raised and getting number 6 for him. But do we really have enough time for him to coach to get that 6th championship right now? It doesn't look like it's anytime soon. So you're expecting him to coach another 4, maybe 5 years before we see one. And that's a tough part there. I think he's already got everything he needs to do. He's accomplished everything, regarded as one of the, if not the greatest coach in NBA history. And you know what? Forget that, Jeff. One of the greatest coaches in sports history is, something that you have to throw that title in. So as of right now, it just comes down to the front office and, of course, former players. I think it's something that they all need to talk to him about, see where he's at right now. If he decides to come back, can't argue if he wants to, but I think it's more on that, like we mentioned, the Tom Landry, the Jerry Sloan, a lot of these coaches that coached for a very long time. And you know what? It's just time to move on. And that's not for me because of the way the Spurs have been playing. Forget that. It's because of the health issues. I mean,
exactly.
It's got to be that.
Yeah, I would hate, for him to come back and seemingly okay. What if it's a rodeo road trip, and something happens, he's away from home, and there's just, what's like, I guess I'm trying to, what's the next? Like, what's the next domino to fall? How many medical decisions we have to endure? Maybe not we, but him, to realize that, you know what, maybe it's just simply Mother Nature, just life saying, you know what, Bob, you gotta stop. What if it's just that? I mean, it's just life saying, that's it, buddy. You did everything you can. And, you mentioned the players too. Tony Parker, years ago, he did an interview in France. I forget what outlet it is, but he did an interview with a French outlet where he said that mind you, this was years ago, that he's told Pop, what are you doing? Like, why are you still doing this? So the players have been telling him, like, at least Parker has been like, yeah, you're good. You're good. It's time to hang it up. But you got to figure too, it's unfortunate, but his wife had passed away years ago. Maybe, he's joked about it, but he ain't joking, that there's a nice check that waits for him, every 2 weeks in his bank account. There's something for him to do because, they say, once you retire, man, and you're away and you're not working, like life goes by like that. And, but he just wants to continue being active. But again, he will be active. He ain't leaving the franchise. He's the president. He'll be in that war room come draft night. He'll be on the phone, talking with whoever the next coach is or stopping by at practice, giving his 2 cents. So, he's not completely going away from the game. And I think we got to drive that home. If Pop does say, I'm retiring, maybe it's from coaching. Look, nothing wrong with having a nice desk job. Nothing wrong with that. And that's what he'll have. He'll have a nice, calm desk job. Can you imagine the Spurs next season going some crazy 10, 12 losing skid and Pop's at leading and how much of his blood's going to boil? Or if Wemby misses the defensive assignment, that's going to get him going. Or they get trounced, the pressures and the stress could add more to, his health right now. We were talking about the situation we had with Pop. Rudy, do you think maybe he should have retired years ago?
Man, that's a great question. I've always felt like after last season was probably the time that he should have retired. Now, years ago, no, I still think he had some left in him. He still had, some developing of players. And, when he got Wemby, hey, man, nobody wants to retire when you get number one picks and you get Wembanyama. You want to have a chance to coach him. So I don't fault him at him for that, for coming back for that. And, the thing with Pop, Jeff, is you made a great point. And it's a point that I hope the fans and the listeners of Locked On really, really think about. You talk about, what if they go on that 10, 12 game losing skid? If they're on that 6 game losing skid, you've seen them call timeouts within a minute of the start of the game after 1 minute because of defensive assignments, and you see them blow up. Well, what are we thinking because of the health, situation that he's been having, the stroke? He's not going to be the same Pop. And have you noticed the last few years, he hasn't been the same Pop. He's been more mellow. He's been, less, I want more nasty, less jumping and screaming. He's been more mellow. And then you start getting fans criticizing, well, Pop shows that he doesn't look like Pop cares anymore because he's not getting on the players. He's not, getting on Devin's butt because he's missing defensive assignments, or Keldon didn't make that extra pass. What is Pop doing? It's more criticism for a guy that doesn't deserve any more criticism than what he's been getting the past few years. So keep in mind, if he comes back, it's going to be the same thing, a mellow type of Pop. And I don't know if fans are going to be accepting of that because you've already got them screaming after we've been telling them this was going to be another wash season. They're screaming that they didn't make the play in. They didn't try. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. Well, God, Pop's going to get it all next year if he comes back. So, yeah, man, I really do think that it's a front office job, and it's time to have those tough conversations right now.
Yeah, and look, he's been away from basketball for practically a year now. He took season off. Maybe in that time he had time to reflect on what's he doing. He's going through rehab. The Spurs have officially said that, but I don't know if they changed their tune. I don't know now. The next press release we get, it's his coaching season for next year is in doubt now. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm expecting some sort of statement from the Spurs in the coming days, maybe the coming weeks, but it's got to be soon with the draft lottery right around the corner. And you want to have a coach already there. So whoever they do select in the lottery, in the draft or interview with or work out, that person knows, it's going to be coach A, B, or C. Not maybe it's Pop, maybe it's Mitch. We don't know. We got to have a definitive answer right now. And again, not because we're trying to usher Pop out and give him the boot. It's just because if Pop really feels that he wants to have the best interest in the franchise, and the best interest in the franchise have stability. Because right now, as of this recording, Rudy, frankly, the head coaching spot is unstable right now because nobody knows who's going to be, right?
Yeah, we've talked about identity for the Spurs the last few seasons, and I think that still plays a big part. You got to get an identity, and that starts with the coach right now. I mean, get a coach in here that if Pop does decide to retire or the Spurs decide to move on, grab a coach in here, whether it be Taylor Jenkins, who has San Antonio Spurs ties back with Austin, or Mike Malone. You've got a guy fresh off a championship a couple of years ago. I mean, there's just so many coaches out there and so many ways you can go with this, but heading into a very critical off season, starting with the NBA draft, you've got to get everything lined up. You've got to make sure your coaching staff is right and ready to go. You've got to make sure you've got players in mind. Again, you mentioned workouts for young prospects here. So, I mean, not soon after the draft, Jeff, is free agency. And that's when you start seeing players getting moved in these big deals, these superstars. So, I mean, you would hope that the Spurs do come out with some kind of statement, hopefully this week, if not this weekend. I doubt this weekend because it's being Easter, but
Easter, yeah.
I think this week they should come out with the statement, see what's going on. I hope they don't. And I respect the privacy. Trust me, I respect privacy and all that stuff. But at the same time, they waited a long time to give an update on Pop the first time. I doubt you can go months again without an update, knowing that the draft and the free agency period and everything's coming up. They've got to get something going right away.
Yeah, and it's not that you, me, the fans, the media are trying to be nosy and butt into Pop's life. We get it. We understand. This is a medical situation he's going through. He suffered the stroke, now a fainting episode. Not trying to get information or his X-rays or his vital scans. Nothing like that's not the point. The point is that he's a national figure. He's a public figure. He's he's a celebrity. I mean, that's who he is. And when situations like this happens, fans are going to want to know. The paying customer wants to know what's going on. And the Spurs don't need to, like I said, don't need to say, okay, Rudy Campos will sweep the league. Here, his medical file. Have at it. I'm not asking that. Just saying, hey, here's an official statement. He's doing fine. Yes, he did have the fainting spell. It was connected to the stroke, or it wasn't. You even have to go that far. Just say he's doing fine. But so far, we haven't heard nothing. And that's the thing with the Spurs. They run a tight ship there. They, I mean, like I said, none of the local media had it. None of them. Nobody knew. And they had it under wraps for days. Because remember, TMZ said they reached out to the Spurs for a statement 3 days before Friday they released it. So they were under obviously a tight ship, but that's not surprising. We're talking about what happened here, and this kind of popped in my head right now. Mm-hmm. As far as the coaching search is concerned, because again, even if Popovich didn't have these medical issues, this is not something new. How many years ago we've been talking about, oh, that's the next domino to fall in the rebuild. It's got to be the coaching. Go back further. Remember, he was supposed to retire when Tim Duncan retired. He didn't. And even then we were talking about who's going to replace Popovich because Tim Duncan just retired, so he's on his way out too. This is nothing new. Rudy, what's just kind of speeding it along is the medical issue. So again, Rudy and I are not trying to kick him out. This has been a topic for a long, long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What do you have to say to the fans that there's some fans out there, Rudy, that say you guys are just trying to pry into his life and leave him alone?
Well, I say exactly what you said. We're not even close to doing that. We're not trying to pry into his life. We're not trying to get his bank statements or medical records or anything like that. The thing is that fans, when you talk about replacing a coach, especially in the San Antonio area with Coach Pop, they are so tied to Coach Popovich, and they always point back to everything, the titles, the consecutive playoff streak, the most winningest coach in NBA history. You cannot do that. Well, no fairy tale ever lasts forever. Mm-hmm. And that's a fact right there, is that someday the fairy tale has to end. And as tough as it is, and as hard as it is to make it happen, to do a change, you've got to make change at times. And what these fans don't fail to realize is it's okay. We're not pushing him out. We're not begging the Spurs to fire him. We're not begging the Spurs to make him quit. No, we're actually looking at it as his health wise right now.
Mm-hmm.
If put it this way, if I am, get a call from the doctor and they're saying, look, you're really, really sick. Okay. So you need to kind of chill. And the one thing you need to get rid of is doing sweep the league for good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fight myself to do sweep the league because I've accomplished what I wanted to on there.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to spend time with my family. I want to be able to do this and that. So you're going to give me, the advice, you and other people that I've known for a long time. Hey, it's probably best to just step back.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're asking the front office to do, is talk
Mm-hmm.
to him. Look, you've accomplished it all, man. You've done great. You've brought the city into relevance. I mean, you're one of the guys that brought the city into relevance when it came to sports. We don't need anything more. This is your health. Enjoy the rest of your life. Enjoy your, get better, enjoy good health. Just enjoy the games. If you want a job, we've got a job for you. But it's less stress to be the president than it is to be the head coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you a little surprised that we haven't really seen, like, prior to the feigning episode, like him with photos or video of him out and about in San Antonio? Think about that. I mean, they must have, what is, like, some sort of, secret agent moves here or something, because I mean, I'm pretty sure he's not just cooped up in his apartment in San Antonio. He's got to go out. I'm a little surprised that, nobody has really had any video or photos of him just out in San Antonio or traveling or something. So the Spurs definitely, try to protect him, the players, as much as possible. There's that too. But again, according to TMZ, he suffered, again, for those of y'all just joining in right now, Popovich, according to TMZ, suffered a fainting episode while having dinner at a steakhouse in San Antonio. There is video of allegedly Popovich on a stretcher being put into an EMS truck and whatnot. But, Rudy, we have another panelist that wants to join in here. He couldn't join us to start the show, but he's now available time. Everybody just going to welcome Matt Guzman of Spurs on Sports Illustrated. And Matt, I'm pretty sure you know Rudy Campos already.
Yeah, we did a show together a couple weeks ago.
It's been a while.
So we're holding the fort down for you, Matt, while you were trying to scramble to get on the show. But first of all, appreciate you hopping on, and make sure to follow Matt on X at MattGZMN, as well as Rudy Campos at Sweep the League. Matt, we've been talking about the report via TMZ, Pop suffering a fainting episode while having dinner. Now, allegedly, it is him in the video being put on a stretcher and put into an EMS van. Matt, the Spurs have not made an official statement as of this recording. Matt, your first reaction when you heard the news?
Well, to be honest, I was a little scared. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't really realize it was real at first,
Mm-hmm.
but then you take a look at the details, and Shams ended up confirming that report, and you realize it is him. And it's one of those things. I'm very, very glad that he's okay. The report afterward was that he's at home, he's stable, he's okay. Like, he was able to talk by the time he was in the ambulance, but obviously not a very good sign at all. Because he was just out at dinner. It wasn't like there was anything extremely stressful or anything. And so I just definitely a little scared to hear and to see.
Yeah, exactly. We've already asked the question. We answered it. We gave our opinion. Is this another sign that he needs to really consider stepping away from the head coaching spot? Where do you land on that spectrum? You think he still should come back and make an attempt, or no? Just you did everything you can, Pop. You're good.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion, the latter. I think that he's proven what he needs to prove. Not that he really had anything to prove in the beginning, in the first place. He's going to go down as one of the greatest coaches of all time. He has 5 titles with the Spurs. He's the winningest coach with the Spurs. Like, he's done everything he needs to do, in my opinion. And that said, it would be unlike him to not try and make a return or try to still come back. But I think I'm of the opinion that it probably isn't wise or the best decision he can make for his health.
Yeah, I told Rudy that it's just simply Mother Nature telling him, you got to stop already, And then Rudy and I reminded the watchers, the listeners right now, that just because if he does decide to step away from the coaching spot, doesn't mean he's stepping away from the Spurs. Matt, he's still the president, right?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
he's always loved to keep his hands on these things, even from afar. And so I think, even if it's not him on the sidelines, he will still have a say. And I think any coach who fills that role will, undoubtedly look to him and for guidance and otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. Rudy, I want to go back to you.
Mhm.
Do you think this episode that Pop reportedly suffered, how much do you think that impacts the rebuild? Do you think it pushes it further along as far as getting that next building block of the rebuild, a head coaching spot? You think it stalls it because maybe he's kind of still like, I don't know if I should come back or not. He's still wavering. Does this incident impact the rebuild positively or negatively, or maybe not at all?
Not at all. I mean, the rebuild is still the way it is. It starts with the players, and you've got Mitch that was there last year. Obviously, it doesn't affect the rebuild if you're still in limbo. The quicker that they get an idea on what Pop's going to do, and if they say, "Hey, Pop," and like we talked about, you've done everything you can. We're going to have to move on. Go get someone else to coach the team. It just moves the rebuild right along. But for right now, rebuild wise, I mean, it's technically, adding players in the offseason, trying to improve the roster to get better. So rebuild wise, it hasn't put a negative. It's not a positive, nothing like that. It's still rebuild that's still trucking on. You still have a coaching search. It was the same coaching search at the beginning of the season, when Pop went down to now the offseason. So it's not going to affect anything right now unless the Spurs just continue to wait it out. And then here you are 2-3 weeks before training camp, and you still don't know what's going on with the coaching status. So that's when you're thinking, okay, this rebuild might be stalled a little bit longer because we don't even have the identity at coach. But right now, I'm going to say it's still on track, and we're still going to see a better season next year for the Spurs.
Matt, we answered this question. Want to get your thoughts on it. Do you believe maybe the Spurs already know what direction he's leaning towards, either trying to come back or not coming back at all?
I think so. I think that I would go as far as to say is when he was putting out statements about, hey, I do hope to come back, or, I do hope that I can get to a position where I can coach again. I have a feeling they already knew. And it honestly could just be, him giving that positive, not PR, this is not a PR stunt, but just giving the team and the world that positive, hey, I think we're going to try and make it. We're going to come back, so that all of the, the attention, any of that just kind of stays away from the topic. They just were able to push you to the side. Hey, Pop is hoping to come back. That's what we're going to say.
Yeah.
But I think that, especially after Tuesday and the way that there's a lot that goes on behind closed doors that we have zero clue about. I do think they probably have an idea where he's leaning. He probably has an idea of whether or not the team is going to try to push him out or tell him, hey, maybe you take a step back this way. I do think that there are things that we are not ever going to be clued into that they are very much aware of and starting to think about and digest.
Yeah, and if a coaching change is going to happen, it's going to happen ASAP because this team is on the rise. It is. Wemby's coming back 100%. Blood clots seem to be cleared up, and he'll be good to go. De'Aaron Fox had his finger surgery. You're going to get a full season, a sophomore season from Steph Castle. These guys are going to be together, De'Aaron Fox and Wemby are going to play more than 5 games, so that's going to be good. You even heard in the final statements that Fox had to say before the season ended that he wants to work with Wemby, become a deadly 1-2 punch combo pick and roll guys in the NBA. So there's that. So this team is on the rise. Matt, I brought this attention to Rudy. You got a team that has some first-round draft picks, has a lot of cash on hand, young core, Wembanyama. The list goes on and on. This is an attractive destination for any head coach. Right now could be the time to have that conversation with Pop, right? Because if you have a Jenkins, a Malone, one of Rudy's favorites, Sam Cassell out there, or Jeff Van Gundy, Budenholzer, that's a lot of quality coaching talent out there, isn't it, Matt?
Absolutely. And I think, Jeff, you and I discussed this a couple of shows back or quite a few now, but, there is going to have to be a level of due diligence the Spurs are going to take. Right now, Mitch Johnson is filling the role that Popovich is leaving for him. But, is he going to be the long-term answer? That's something that they're going to have to kind of decide on their own. And that, like you mentioned, is going to have to be imminent. I think Fox said his last during the exit interviews, he mentioned that he and Victor are going to be cleared about the same time in about 8 weeks. And in my head, I'm almost thinking when you get your 2 stars back and on the court, fully cleared for basketball, you're going to want to know, who's going to be coaching them that upcoming season so they can get that full off season to grow. because I think it's almost as important, if not more, for those players to get a full offseason with a coach than it is for the players to get a full offseason with each other. And so there are a lot of names out there that are definitely going to be considered and who I feel would definitely want to take a job, coaching Victor Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox on the rise, as they're still both very young.
Yeah, and Rudy, who knows what other big name free agents might come to San Antonio down the road. They're going to want to know, all right, how's the coaching spot? Those are seasoned vets that know how important it is about coaching. Ask De'Aaron Fox in Sacramento. Big reason why he wanted out in Sacramento was because they let go of Mike Brown.
Mm-hmm.
But one other aspect that in this whole Pop coming back or not coming back thing here, Rudy, is he's always, well, I don't know, maybe he's never said it, but it's been kind of implied that he doesn't want to leave the franchise until he feels the franchise is in good footing for him to leave. Rudy, I think the franchise is as of this recording today, it's fine. I think it's in a good position right now where he can have his exit. It's not like they don't have a Wemby. It's not like, they did not surpass 22 wins. They had, what do they have, like 34 wins? 34. I think 34 wins. So it's not like they went down. They're trending in the right direction. They acquired Fox. Castle is becoming a budding star right now. If he exit, then I think he could feel okay knowing the state of the Spurs as of today is looking bright right now, Rudy.
Yeah, 100% on that. I mean, you've already got the core piece when it comes to Wemby. You've got the rest of the foundation with De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle. Even if you go deep down, you've got a 6-man in Keldon Johnson that proves that he can be be a 6-man of the year candidate later on, not this season, but later on. So I think the core is already there. The pieces are there. Pop can definitely look back and say, okay, this franchise is definitely on the rise. It's back to where it's going to be, when we were coaching with Tim and David and these guys, it can get there eventually. But the thing too is that he's going to have to look back and think, I can't bring my coaching style to these guys here. This is a very fast-paced game. There's no more, 78, 90 victories and, all that stuff. So the NBA is a different kind of brand now. It's a different kind of basketball. So I think the Spurs right now, roster-wise, they've got a lot to do still, but they're on the right path. Pop can definitely look back and say, you know what? I can leave now. This franchise is on the right path. And that's where you go and bring in one of these massive coaches that are available and just continue that tradition, that Pop tradition of winning basketball. So yeah, to me, I'm not pushing him out, like I said, but if there's ever a time to strike, it's right now. And because you've got all these great coaches out there right now, I mean, there's no better opportunity to take than get one of these better coaches out there.
Yeah. And Matt, it's again, let's just say Pop says, all right, I'm done. It was a good ride. Good luck, Spurs. I'll be there for you. If you look at the coaches that are out there right now, a lot of heavy Spurs connections. Jenkins, we know about that. Who else we got? Mike Brown. Well, we definitely know that. Monty Williams. Yep. Know about that too. If Steve Kerr wants to, take his talents to San Antonio, well, he's played with the Pop and won a title with Pop. The list goes on and on. Mike Malone, although not from Pop coaching tree, but a big fan of Pop and his style. So again, we know the roster may be ready and set to go for the future, but technically the coaching spot could be too, because there are a lot of these coaches come from Pop's tree.
Absolutely. And, I like what we're talking about. He's wanted to have his hands on this franchise and kind of feel it's in a good position before he does leave. He's been here for about 30 years, almost 3 decades. He's had his hands on Spurs basketball. And so, I think that he can find a lot of solace knowing that whatever state the franchise is in, it's because of him. From whenever he took over to now, he's had his hands on this team. And, I think if he were to call it quits, like we're talking about, more likely than not, whoever comes in to fill his place will have, a tie to him, or will recognize him as a big, impactor on their coaching journey, or they straight up have been with the Spurs in the past in a different role. And so I think that, I like what Rudy said. It's like, we don't need to push him out, but if there's a time to start looking at this idea or start saying, hey, maybe this isn't a good position, I think it's right now, because, nobody's going to be putting him at fault. Nobody's going to be I don't think anybody thinks twice if he decides to call it
Right.
quits. I think the only narrative is going to be, look at this amazing career he's had.
Yeah. Pop, you're gonna have something retired in the banners next to those all-time Spurs great. Your name is gonna go up there, so it's gonna happen. Rudy, if he does call it a day, what do you think? I don't suspect he'll have a press conference. I think he'll go out the way Timmy did, just a simple email statement, post it on the Spurs website, and that's it. Because you look back, this is for Matt too. Only Manu Ginobili had a press conference. Help me if you were Rudy. Do you remember Tony having one? I don't remember him having one at all.
No,
At all.
I don't remember him having one at all.
Did it? Yeah, the only of the big three that had a full-on press conference was Manu. That was it. Timmy just put a statement out on the Spurs website. Tony didn't. I don't think he even did anything. I think maybe he just told Mark Spears from ESPN, and Mark Spears wrote it up, and that was it.
Well, Tony was in Charlotte, so I mean,
Right.
he basically retired while a Hornet. So I
Right.
mean, yeah, I can definitely see that. I'll say this: the most pop thing to do if he ends up retiring, is putting out a statement. I am president of the San Antonio Spurs basketball organization, and as president of the basketball organization, I want to let everybody know that I am going to have to release Gregg Popovich. Kind of just do a pop release and pop type of thing. Where that would be the most pop thing to do. But no, honestly, I want to say that if anything does happen, I seriously doubt he goes into a press conference. I mean, let's be real, man. Since all this has happened, nobody's seen him outside of, the players and, people in the front office. So it wouldn't be, I just don't think it's pop to go into a press conference and say, you know what, I'm retiring, knowing he really doesn't feel that well. Maybe he's not looking very good. So he doesn't want to probably go that route. If anything, you'll have a Spurs statement. The guys over at Spurs PR, they do a fantastic job. So they'll probably get a statement out. Of course, Shams will end up putting it out as well. You got all the other big guys, but I think it's just going to be a kind of a quiet Tim Duncan type thing, right off into the sunset type thing.
Well, you mad? You'll be a quiet exit if he goes that route.
More likely than not. I mean, his entire career he spent hating media press conferences, so I don't imagine he'd be eager to give one more. I think he's had his fair share.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's put a wrap on this episode. This emergency episode of Locked On Spurs here. Ultimately, the verdict here. Rudy, I'll start with you. What should the Spurs do?
Spurs should definitely have that talk with Pop, and I think it's time to not force him out, but time to have that conversation to say, we appreciate your service, but it is time for us to move on. Not because you haven't accomplished anything, not because the last few years have been unsuccessful by fan standpoint, but it's because of health. We can't see, like I mentioned, we can't see a Coach Krzyzewski type thing where he collapsed at the Cameron Indoor that 1 year. We can't have anything like that happen. Road trips are probably going to be tough because if you're playing a game, you're flying out the same night to another destination. Flying does take its toll, especially on people that are sick. So it's a big challenge for them to make it work. So it might be best for them to say, look, let's not go through that. Let's go ahead. Let's just move on. We'll bring you to the front office and we'll just call it a day. Yeah.
Matt, your ultimate verdict. Where do you stand?
I think I'm right there. I think that it's time for the Spurs to sit down with Gregg and talk about, what he thinks is best for him. And maybe they share what they feel is best for the franchise and share the obvious concerns, like we were just mentioning, all the travel and just the toll that an 82 game season has on anybody. And I think, they have that conversation, they figure out what their best course of action is. And I would not be surprised if that results in, a new head coach by the time the media day comes around next year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You don't want to let a coaching tandem like Rudy Campos get away from you, Matt. You don't want to have a coaching tandem like Rudy Campos, go off to, the Washington, Rudy, could you turn around Washington? Could you turn around the Wizards?
Jeff, I don't have enough years in my life to turn that franchise around right now. So I would say no, probably not.
Maybe you could rescue the Mavericks or no?
I can definitely, with that team healthy, I can definitely rescue them. That's an easier part. That's an easier part for me. But Washington, you're asking for way too much, man.
Yeah, that's like a miracle there. But nevertheless, I'm with you guys. I don't think you kick them out. I think you just say, buddy, give him a big hug and be like, enough already. I think I texted Matt, I said, enough is enough already. Enough is enough. You're good, Pop. You're good. You're good. One more win is not going to alter your course of a Hall of Fame career because you're already in it. Think about it too. Rudy, Matt, I don't know your thoughts about this. Do you think he's also eligible for FIBA Hall of Fame as well? I think he is.
I think so.
Yeah. He's international coaching, his assistant, Team USA, as a head coach, and then Team USA as assistant coach. So, he's up for that. So look, there's still a few more little accomplishments he can pick up, but enough's enough. We're good. Pop, it's time to move on. And if the franchise is first and foremost, then you got to have that talk. All right. Well, those are our thoughts on the unfortunate news that Popovich suffered another medical incident. Again, according to TMZ, he suffered a fainting episode during dinner at a San Antonio restaurant. Again, the Spurs did not confirm as of this recording some sort of official statement, but all signs are pointing that it was actually him. We'll see if the Spurs do come out with a statement shortly. By the way, before we go, Matt, just real quick, do you think the Spurs have to say something in the coming days?
I don't think so. I don't think they will. I don't think they're going to report on a random medical episode. I think the next time we hear from them regarding Popovich is if they do decide to move in a different direction or decide to stick with him. But I don't know if they're going to report and confirm an official medical episode on Tuesday.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, Rudy and I, we felt like maybe they'll have to say something just because.
I thought so too. The only reason I say that is because it's in the off season. It wasn't at the facility. It didn't have anything to do with the season. I almost think that they don't feel the need to confirm it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what the Spurs do. Well, we've got to hear from you. Where do you stand on this whole Pop coaching future, his health? We got to hear from you. So leave a comment right here on Locked On Spurs. We'll read it in a future episode. And while you're at it, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Kensfy, plus have YouTube. Also, Locked On Spurs newsletter in the description below. Rudy, where can fans chat with you about this topic and more?
Yeah, so the best way to get me is on Twitter or whatever the kids are calling it. I think it's X these days. It's at Sweep the League. Go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV. Hit that subscribe where you get all the content 24/7, not just the big show, Sweep the League TV. You get all the content from all the shows that we've got. And before you go, man, how is Pop not in the San Antonio Sports Hall of Fame?
See, there you go.
Of all the Hall of Fames, you asked about FIBA, and I'm like, he can't even get into the Sports Hall of Fame in San Antonio. That befuddles me. Yeah. But go ahead, man. Yeah, that's where you can contact me.
Yeah, what befuddles me is whenever Rudy's live or he's not live. Yeah, that
sorry. I'm sorry about that.
Rudy, you have live on all the time. Oh, Rudy's on right now. Then you go, oh, it's pre-recorded. But nevertheless, again, be sure to follow Rudy on X at Sweep the League. Yeah. Check out his show on YouTube at Sweep the League as well. Matt, you came in a little later, but sorry we couldn't get our schedules coordinated, but you came in at the last second. So thanks for taking time out of your schedule as well. How can fans chat with you about this topic and more?
Yeah, best way to do it is over at X at Matt Jeezy Man, or on Spurs on SI, or the YouTube page, whatever. I tend to be around. I'm trying to be more active in general. So, but yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff. I know it's a last minute thing, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was last minute. I asked you guys to reach out to you guys. You come in, and Matt, you could come in. You just were delayed a little bit. Rudy was like, let's rock and roll. We call him the sixth man here on the Locked On Spurs. The Monarch Ginobili. This guy will come on, man. He will come off that bench in an instant. But guys, thank you all for hopping on this episode of Locked On Spurs. We appreciate you. This heavy topic here, is how do you tell a Hall of Fame coach, you got to go, or at least start thinking about going. But, we'll see what the Spurs do. Ultimately, the good news is, guys, it's not our decision. So we don't have to have that conversation with Pop. They'll have to have that conversation with Pop. I can see, though, Rudy doing it like a Band-Aid. I think Rudy would do it like a Band-Aid with Pop. Would you? Just rip it off.
Yeah, man. That's why I think a lot of people don't want me as a GM because I'm just downright just, what? I'm sorry, man. You got to go. I can't have you here.
Matt, Rudy's on record saying that he would have taken calls for Tim Duncan.
Multiple times have I said that.
That's crazy.
Multiple. But you always say that, but you never say the end part. I would never trade him, but I will take calls on him because you take calls on everybody, no matter who it is. So
I got to ask you in the next episode of Locked On Spurs, what would it have taken for you to say, you know what? Yeah, let's make a deal for Timmy. Yeah, I think we got to have a what if episode. Matt, you could join us.
Fire Rudy chance pretty instantly at prospect.
Yeah, you would become the Nico Harrison. You would become the Nico Harrison of the Spurs history.
No, because honestly, if I was to do the Nico deal, I would have got a way better deal than that.
That's
so
true.
I mean, trust me. You know what? Locked On Spurs, we'll do a what if on Tim Duncan, but you have to give me the years because it depends on what players are where. But yeah, we make it up and I'll do it.
Prime Garnett. Okay, I'm just saying Prime Garnett is out there in that time.
Ooh, maybe.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll see. We'll see what Rudy has to say. It's going to be a fun episode in the offseason right here on Locked On Spurs. But again, thank you all guys for hopping on right now. No one long right now. But yeah, it's just a big topic. So many facets to it, so many streets. We got to explore it all. We'll definitely keep you updated on what's going on with Pop, the Spurs, his future with San Antonio, and so much more. But yeah, so thank you all for being the everydayers. Y'all come here every single day. Keep it coming. So for Matt Guzman, Rudy Campos, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.